Lauren,
World.
thank you for being on the Daniel and the Den podcast,
Welcome.
where we highlight authentic individuals, their life, their story, and we want to hear all about your upbringing. We want to hear all about how you got to where you got to and uh, how you have seen the hand of the Almighty interlaced through the ups and the downs, the good times and the bad times. Because here on the Daniel and the Dead podcast, we are all about freedom. We're all about true connection, and we're all about happiness. And ultimately, as we acknowledge the Almighty in our lives, and learn how to connect our hearts and our minds, we
Mhm.
feel we can accomplish amazing things together. So, thank you for being here. We
Thank you
love
for
you. We
having
appreciate
me. Thank you for having me.
absolutely.
So let's start with your early years. Tell everybody about your early years.
Tell everybody about my early years. I was born and raised in Honolulu, in Manoa, which is where the University of Hawaii is, on the island of Oahu, in the Hawaiian island chain, um, known as the state of Hawaii by the United States, and known as the Kingdom of Hawaii by people who are still loyal to the kingdom. Um, it's very important, I think, just to establish now that where I'm born is significant. My mom is from Oklahoma. She was born in Texas, raised in Oklahoma, so she's white. And my dad is Hawaiian and Chinese, and he's born and raised here in the islands. And so, since I was born here, I have been raised by this place more than the place where my mom is from.
Mhm.
So while I've traveled all over the United States and some internationally, very little, in Hawaiian we say "He Hawaii'o," which means I'm Hawaii. So I'm Native Hawaiian and I'm from Hawaii, and this is where I currently reside. But as a child, I I had a pretty I don't know if it's typical. I really don't know. Everyone's story is unique, you know. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of love in my family, but the truth is we live in a colonized state
Yeah.
here as Native Hawaiians. And so what was normal for me in navigating generational trauma issues as they showed up in our family is quite typical, I think, of other people who live in colonized places and probably marginalized or Black and Brown people the world over.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't necessarily think that that's normal. It's just normal for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I danced hula, I played soccer, I was a smart kid. I don't
Mhm.
know what else.
Hmm.
Tell me, one of the things I've learned about you, that I think is really cool. So your father is from Hawaii, so he's Hawaiian and Chinese, but yet his name
Is
is
India.
Shri,
Hmm.
right?
Yep,
Which is an Indian Eastern
it
world name,
is.
right?
Yeah. So both of my grandparents had an interesting relationship with India. I say, and that was even before my grandfather became a devotee of Baba Muktananda or Baba. He's
Mhm.
a he was a guru from India. The guru that actually the woman followed in Eat, Pray, Love, the book Eat, Pray, Love. Same
Mhm.
man. So I was raised around that. I was raised around self development uh, movement called Earhart Seminars Training. It's now become Landmark Education, but I was raised around that sort of not sort of. I was raised immersed in that type of self-growth model. Most of my family was either Catholic or some version of Christian. on the Hawaiian side, that's layered on top of our native understanding of the world and spirituality. So there's a lot of things that combine to shape who I am. And Sri is my dad's name. It is Indian. I don't recall who they named him after, but I do know that it was like a philosopher from India. Both of my grandparents were very well read, very well read. So I'm the eldest living grandchild of my grandfather and grandmother in Hawaii. That's called the Hiapo. And it's a pretty significant role in the family. And so I got to spend probably the most time with my grandparents. And yeah, they both had a connection with India separately. I'm not sure. I think it's just probably a lot of their readings that they did about philosophy.
Which is cool. And for me, when I two people, I've only met one of these two, but I feel like I know both of them because I met the wife of the couple. So Shri Krishnaji is her name, and then her husband's name is Shri Krishnaji. And so I learned, so I think Shri sounds like it's more like a surname or something there in India, but for like spiritual leaders and spiritual masters, I guess. And they were somebody that have meaningfully impacted my life on my spiritual progression and my healing journey, so to say. And so when I learned that your father's name was Shri, and I've learned a little bit about your upbringing and your experience, and I would love for you to talk a little bit more about some of the healing modalities that you were raised in and that you were brought up in, because I feel like I just love highlighting and pointing to the Eastern world and the truths that are found there, and the Hawaiian culture, which complete opposite side of the world, but yet there's a lot of similarities in belief systems and in the Eastern world, the concept of Ayurveda, which is a way of life, which is a way of living, which is embodying spiritual practices, and really pointing to you know the way that we eat, the way that we breathe, the way that we are connected to source. And the little bit that I've been able to learn from you in the Hawaiian culture, and how you were raised in those healing modalities, I just find it ironic and really, really cool to understand and know that your grandparents were drawn to the Eastern world and obviously named your father Shri. So if you wouldn't mind speaking to a little bit to some of those healing modalities and some of the cultural aspects of Hawaii that make Hawaii Hawaii, but and also that make you, which is unique.
Thanks. Yeah, there are a lot of ways to answer that prompt. I'm considering which way is the most efficient. Because Hawaii is, if not the most, one of the most remote locations on Earth, right? We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean and many thousands of miles to any other landmass, from the archipelago. There's a certain je ne sais quoi, right? You can't quite put your finger on it, but when you land in Hawaii, you can feel what we refer to as aloha, which is the divine order, essentially embodied by this land and these people. And what has happened since the beginning of time, as humanity has been in existence, I believe, is that Hawaii has been a beacon of spiritual awakening for the people who landed on its shores. So now it is significant that that we have an East-West Center at the University of Hawaii. We have every type of church you can imagine located here, peacefully coexisting. And we have a very, very rich oral history of our own creation story that falls almost lockstep with the Bible.
Mm.
So the level of spirituality that is naturally embedded in the healing modalities that are practiced here is, I think, unique to this place. Or I find that a lot of places try to inject that into the work that they do for healing in other places. For instance, you're in California and there's a yoga studio. It's California on the street, and you go into the yoga studio and it's a yoga studio. Well, there are many places in Hawaii where there's no wall between the yoga studio and the street. The healing is happening just as much on the street as it's happening inside of the place of worship or the place of practice.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. When you're raised here, there's a higher level of vibration and consciousness about karma, about taking your steps carefully that we're raised with. Not everyone comes here with that same understanding, but if you're born and raised here and you've experienced the dark side of that, which I have, which I believe all of my family have,
Mm.
it's it's a it's a it's a tight spiritual order here, and it feels loose. If you come here and you observe it as someone who's not born and raised here, it feels so easygoing, but the
Mm.
truth is it's not. The level of expectation about the way you carry yourself, the way you communicate, it's very hard to get used to if you come from elsewhere. I've seen people come from all over the world and get so frustrated at the pacing, at the unsaid type of undertones of understanding Asian ways of communicating and Polynesian ways of communicating and how they interlace, because it's different. It's different here.
Yeah.
And yeah, to answer your question more directly, there are Chinese healers, Native Hawaiian healers, Reiki healers, and then, people who do teach mindfulness and those types of things, in addition to Western doctors. One thing that is pretty interesting to see develop is the Western establishment starting to embrace and understand the idea of gut health as it relates to mental health. This is these thousands of years, every single native culture around the world understood that before it became something that, doctors were recommending gut health.
Yeah.
It's a new type of colonization. They're taking healing modalities that have been in existence for many, many, many generations and claiming that as a discovery, which is just interesting.
It is interesting. I know, and yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because the gut health was really my mom preached it all growing up, and we as macho Western family, cornbread out of Illinois was my grandfather, and grandmother's family was early settlers in the desert, just survivalists. We would make fun of my mom and her ideologies on what we should be eating, and we would be the kids that were eating snacks. Our snacks were nuts and honey and all these things that my mom would feed us, and we didn't realize how foundational that was as kids, right? And then later on in life, as I got, like, the gut was really like the key for me in breaking through into this world that is, to your point, it's been around for thousands of years, right? This is ancient wisdom
Yeah.
that
Right.
in the Western world has been intentionally covered up, right? So that we can be in a disconnected state. Because when we're in a disconnected state, then we are capable of being controlled, right? When we're not disconnected, when we are connected, which again starts at the gut, starts in what we're putting into our bodies, and why we're putting it into our bodies, being intentional with that, taking care of these divine temples that we have that house our spirits. When you look at the body that way, and when you look at gut health in that way, and you recognize and realize how connected we are to Mother Earth, our ancient mother, being the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, um, and understand the seasonality behind all of it and what we're putting into our body, and the importance of eating things in the season thereof, right? And being raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have this word of wisdom that we live by. But it's been interesting for me to go through this process of what's actually written in the text, which is found in Doctrine and Covenants section 89, versus what's practiced as on a cultural level, or at least has been growing up. It's starting to evolve and change. There's been a big disconnect, right? And one of the things I love, though, is I've gone to the Eastern world and learned about Ayurveda. And again, you guys talk about it in your culture. I don't know. I'd be curious to know what it's actually referred to in your culture. Um, but just seeing the similarities behind that, the seasonal eating and being very intentional with what you're putting in your body and when and why. Um, and Chinese medicine, as I've gone down, I've just barely scratched the surface on some of those healing modalities. But I just find them to be so profound and so fascinating to interlace all of these different cultures. So, but thank you for sharing a little about that. I I want to highlight too, I feel like we're missing somebody, and I want to give a shout out to the
Oh,
third triplet, as we refer to him as.
I wish
And
you were here.
I know and he has been, dude, is, you already know this, but the guy Suresh, love Suresh, the core. We're talking about Eastern world, India. What an incredible human being, and literally is the third leg to you and I, and the divine connection. I would just, I have my version of how that all happened, but I would love for you to kind of give a little bit of a backstory on how you and me and Suresh, who's
Right.
been head down working on the C2 way, and we're launching that this week, finally,
Amazing.
after months and months of a lot of energy put into that. But want to highlight him and kind of, if you don't mind giving a little bit of backstory on how the three of us got connected, because I just feel like it highlights the divinity in all of this.
Yes, for sure. Okay. So I think you have to go back a bit. And not to make this about me, but I pivoted from real estate last summer and started an AI company,
Mhm.
very quietly, and was working on it, and then got a call from Alter Call,
Mhm.
which is where I met the two of you, Ryan Blair's program. And we all ended up at this very expensive, unique retreat that was 12 hours a day, vegan food, meditating,
Mhm.
sharing. It was very reminiscent of the type of self-growth seminars that I was around as a child. So there were some triggers there because it was a little culty for me. I mean, whatever, we all said it privately. I think we even said it to Ryan himself, but it's I mean, I don't have time to not tell the truth anymore
Yeah.
about stuff like this. So it was interesting. It was invigorating, and I really, really had a great connection with Suresh. And so afterwards, I continued that connection, and a group of us found ourselves in You had also connected with Suresh.
Briefly, like
Yeah,
briefly, we had like one
briefly.
brief interaction, but yeah,
And then and I had met you and Casey, your wife, briefly as well.
briefly, yep,
And then you and Suresh interacted at one of your events at the Den, I believe,
yep,
right?
yep.
And he told me, you've got to meet Danny. So we all ended up in Utah. You came from Arizona, I came from Hawaii, Suresh came from Colorado, and we all hung out in Utah. And then we had this really amazing meditation session under the moon on the
Mhm.
grass
Yep.
together.
What city in Utah was it?
It was in
Midvale, is that what it's called?
no, it's called, oh, man, just outside of Tooele. It's called what did you say it was?
Midvale? Is that where that's
No,
where the
no, it was in
mud
Midvale.
bots?
I should know this. Well, Tooele is where the Mudbots facility is.
Up
Okay.
like Herda and stuff.
What's that? It's
About
directly west of Salt Lake, and I'm gonna look it up right now.
Grantsville?
It was
Grantsville.
quite beautiful.
Grantsville?
Is Grantsville.
Grantsville.
Grantsville?
Yes.
It was
What a
beautiful.
random spot to
Random
have a
spot, right?
retreat. Oh my
It's at
gosh.
Steve, our man
Yeah.
Steve McCurdy, Steve's
Our
house.
friend Steve McCurdy's house, there was like
Yep.
40 of us
Yep.
that
At his
ended up
house?
there
At his house.
at
Yeah.
his house.
That is he?
There's like 40 of us literally just sleeping wherever we could
Did
find
he
a
marry
place to
the
Like a
sleep.
kids and
camp
stuff?
out.
Yeah, he had a couple. Was his whole family up there? I'm trying to remember if all of his
Not
kids.
all of the kids, some of the kids
Well,
weren't there. They were
yeah,
either
but now
all-
most of his kids were there. His wife, and yeah, there was like 40 people there, and we were
Dude,
literally.
bless his family's heart. He
Oh, I know.
randomly gets 40 people.
The dude's inspired, man. He
He's
literally
got
is.
9 kids though, so that makes it 25% of the 40.
Yes, that's true. Shout out to Steve. Though.
Dang.
Freaking love
Steve
that
and
guy.
Sharp, they're amazing people,
Amazing
beautiful hosts. We had such an interesting and cool time of getting to know each other further and sharing. And there were people there, our friends, that were our trained facilitators,
Mm.
right, of group dynamics and leadership training. So it was a cool time to get to know Suresh and Danny, and I'm finding out that the three of us were very similar in our search to get to the bullseye of how our purpose in life was about to be manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the three of us being on a very similar place on that trajectory and timeline, it caused us to have this little 3 triplet situation where we really have supported each other in ways that are pretty profound in some points, that we can relate to each other on a different level, which
Yeah.
has been super helpful. And Suresh is just a special, he's very, very special. He's gifted. He's
Dude's
gifted.
so gifted.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We all
gifted.
are. We
When was
all
this?
are gifted. and
This
he's-
retreat was in March, right? It was like middle of March, end of March.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a planned retreat. It was
Yeah,
let's
it literally
go
just got thrown together last minute. Yeah.
Well, they are using these Mudbots 3D printers to build. All of us are interested in using this new technology to
Yep.
create new communities and find
Mhm.
faster, better ways of affecting the affordable housing and houselessness.
Yes. That's what
Um,
brought us together was our heart and our desire, all of us collectively to come together to solve a real world problem.
Right.
Lauren in Hawaii with the homelessness that exists there and the poverty with how expensive it is to live there. And then obviously with what happened in Lahaina and being able to be a part of that rebuild effort and then me separately on my background being in construction and development and real estate and in the single family residential world, seeing how expensive housing is and what rental rates are, et cetera, and this desire to, we've got a 3 million plus home shortage in our country, not to mention the countless other millions of homeless that we have in all these major markets.
I mean, LA is just
Oh, it's
covered in homeless
it's
now.
terrible. I mean, between LA, San Francisco, Chicago, all the eastern, major markets as well. That is,
Mhm.
it's a real problem, and all of our hearts and desire is that, hey, how can we come together? And that's just where Steve. I mean, that's Steve's passion as well. And it's like it's just cool to see people that all have the same desire all come together. We didn't know and still don't 100% know. Every day is a new day, exactly how it's all going to interlace. But we know that we were all brought together for a divine purpose, and we've, since that time ebbed and flowed and have been a part of each other's lives in various ways,
Mhm.
to support, to uplift. And it's been really cool to see the hand of the Almighty molding and shaping each one of us individually. And I'm excited to hear the latest update with Aloha AI and with Rare. I can't wait to hear about it and give you some of the latest updates on our front as well. But as we've talked so much about the C2A and Aloha AI and how those two can and will collaborate together. And then Rare, where you guys are at with Rare, I can't wait to hear the latest updates. So we've touched on it. So why don't you give us a little bit of a background on both of those companies and how they're interlacing and what you're
Yeah,
doing?
thanks.
Because it's exciting stuff.
You know, what
It
brought
is.
you to where you are now? I mean, I understand the childhood, and then you did some real estate
Oh,
construction
I
stuff,
mean,
but what got
20,
you, add a little context to what also got you
right,
into trying to do what you do now.
right. So I talked about my family a little bit. My family, my Hawaiian Chinese family has been in public service for generations. So,
Mhm.
um, you know, before contact that looked like one thing, and then after Western contact and the United States presence here, it looked like government officials and lawyers and um judge. One of my uncles is a judge, and
Hmm.
so my grandfather actually was instrumental in writing the labor laws here, and so at one point he represented over 20 labor unions, and I saw him act as a mediator and a negotiator and a confidant of very powerful people. Always when I would be with him, I spent lots of time with him and was in sitting there while he discussed very important things, and it just seemed normal to me.
Hmm.
And so as I became a mom in my 20s. I went to Kamehameha and Punahou, which are two rival schools, but both very, Punahou's where Barack Obama graduated from, and Kamehameha is where most of our family has graduated from, and they're both private schools here. And it would take too long to explain the history of those places, but there's a certain level of responsibility as someone born into my family. I think that my generation all feel a significant weight on our shoulders or shoes to fill because of the ways that our family has contributed to this place. And so my grandfather's efforts then, you can feel any way you want to about unions now, but back in the 60s and 70s, it was an honorable thing to do, right? Was to find ways to help workers be supported with health benefits and pensions when they graduated, when they retired. So many of those people are still alive and benefiting from those things, and the world has changed. So most of my career I was in real estate. I have my real estate license. I started in title and escrow. Waitressed for many years as a young mom, but then over a decade, I think going on 15 years of real estate experience. And last year, I was pivoting my real estate business from leaving a busy team to going solo. And I had a divine directive, I feel, when I was in
Mhm.
prayer to go look up alohaai.com, the domain, and to start a AI company based on the tenets of Aloha, which is the foundation for
Hmm.
ways of solving problems, conflict resolution, mediation, and in Hawaiian it's called ho'oponopono, which is literally to make everything right again.
Mm.
And it's a tall order. People throw it around quite a bit on the internet that they're teaching ho'oponopono. It's a spiritual practice. I believe it was taught at some point at Princeton or Yale as a type of conflict resolution specifically for business. But I had this idea that we could use it, the AI, for that purpose, right? To basically take previous iterations of labor union negotiations with ownership of the companies, what the demands were, the pushback, and the resulting ratified contract,
Mhm.
and then teach that to the AI, which then could be applied to the current negotiations, the demands, the pushback, and then the AI does the work to expedite the process for you and give you proposals that are much closer to where you're going to go. You don't have to sit across the table for 8 months sometimes and threaten to strike. I mean, I was just trying to see if we could use this technology to solve an old problem that persists. But then I went down the rabbit hole and I tell people that was a year ago. And I asked an old family friend who's very experienced in tech, very experienced in tech, and has his own successful tech company using AI, if this was a good idea, if I could create an AI company that was built on our understanding of order. And here's a good example that I gave a Chicago-based attorney about what aloha is, and I hope it's illustrative. People think aloha is one thing. They think it's love, patience, understanding, forgiveness, acceptance, family. It is all of those things. But the version of aloha that I'm most wanting our AI to exemplify is the idea of feeding everyone physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and the clean water, clean air, clean land, clean food. Aloha aina means we take care of this land.
Mm.
So aloha, as I explained it to that person, I hope nicely. I was getting a little frustrated because it does seem a bit condescending when people are like, oh, cute, energy. Like, aloha's not cute. It's not. And I told him it's the highest and best use of the single drop of water that touches the top of the mountain. It's such a tall order to use every dollar or every drop of water. In Hawaiian language, vai vai is the word to say wealth. Vai by itself is the word for fresh water. That's how important we understood fresh water to be, right? And it is. It's the blood of life on this planet. So that water is used for drinking, it's used for cooking, it's then used for washing, it's used for farming. And then Hawaiians were the only civilization, I believe, and I could be wrong. I would love to hear of another one that had a very similar system that used that same water to create brackish water fish ponds where they were farming fish based on the seasonality and the life cycle of the fish. They had the ability to let in babies, let out at certain age, and they were farming the fish so that they had a consistent source of protein to supplement the color, the taro, and the breadfruit, and the other foods that were grown to sustain everyone in that land division, which is what we call an ahupua'a. Now, going backwards into that way of life, that's impossible, right? We're in the modern age, we're in the current state of things. But the idea and the way of coexisting with the land without needing to depend on imported food, for instance, persists. And
Mhm.
Native Hawaiian people, I think as a whole, in general, have a deep frustration with the idea that our ways of existence are our kupuna, our ancestors' way of coexisting with the environment here and feeding everyone with what's here are somehow archaic. And they're not. They're very important, right? And there's a huge push now for sustainability and local farm to table and all of these things. So as Aloha AI develops, the answer is yes. Can AI be used? Yes. Is AI in? Yes. AI is in everything. It's going into everything.
Mhm.
So at this point, Aloha AI is the mother. It's a corporation. We're a C Corp incorporated in Delaware. We've issued shares and we're starting to talk to investors and hopeful partnerships with stakeholders here in Hawaii. But part of the business model is a subsidiary and strategic partnership model where the first subsidiary and also client we are going to be part owners of, which is Rare Hawaii, which is Real Aloha Real Estate Hawaii, which is the entity that is bringing in the 3D home printers.
Mhm.
And it's also going into the ways of using AI, which is Aloha AI is using global historical and current research synthesized to attack a certain place with deep understanding of the context, culturally, location and environment, everything, demographics. So in this case, Hawaii's houselessness and affordable housing crisis is what this subsidiary is targeting. So Aloha AI's first order of business is to affect the affordable housing and houselessness situation with this new technology. And it's exciting, it's challenging. AI moves so quickly. Every single day there's something new happening. But I have three amazing co-founders. I'm going to shout them out, Jason, Karen, and Pooja. And these guys, Danny and Suresh and others have been really, really supportive of the journey. But I tell people this does not belong to me. It was a directive that was a whisper that I listened to, and then it became not a whisper. It was just, I need to take the steps to do this. And it's my time. I really hope that it succeeds, but I have to surrender to the process. Just this past few days has been very challenging. Very, very challenging because working with potentially large amounts of capital, money, or vai is scary to me to do in a cultural context that weaves spirituality and a deep understanding of our kuleana responsibility to this place. Working with sharks, people who will try to steal intellectual property and will try to infringe on the spaces that this AI touches. So it's it's a time for faith. I
Yeah.
don't know how else to put it except that I truly do feel like the partnership with you, Danny, with Suresh, with hopefully Steve, and the ways that we've been running our own races separately,
Yes.
that we will be able to support each other in such a way that we can affect things that need to be affected in a methodical way, that it doesn't push the pendulum into swinging the way that, for instance, political discourse does,
Yeah.
right? Don't want
Yeah.
to let it be in God's timing, but also the patience required to use that drop of water to its highest and best use. Imagine how long it took for them to iterate to being able to do that,
Yeah.
right? To feed hundreds of thousands of people using that system
Yeah.
without depending on any imports.
Well, and wow, like that's so much. We literally
That was a
that
download.
was a serious download, and I thank you for. I mean, that's just scratching the surface. We will have multiple episodes with you as this
All right.
continues to evolve. No, well, I just love hearing it again and again, and because at the end of the day, one thing you taught me, the word you taught me that rang so true to my soul back in March, and we've said it over and over and over again to each other as we both navigated through our own storms, and that's ho'o manawanui, right? And
Yes.
allowing the timing of the Almighty to play out, and requires patience, right? And requires patience and persistence and faith, and but that concept resonated so pivotally and at my core, because of the experience I had 21 years ago when I was living in the Hawaii of Europe, the Canary Islands, and was connected with a divine angel being, Kavi Bem Hayef is her name, who taught me that same concept, and allowing and trusting that things happen in the divine timing of the Almighty Creator, and being willing to show up every day and allow things to be, and to surrender and to not force your will, um, but allow the will of the Almighty to play out, and to be confident in the fact that it will play out how it's supposed to play out. And I just love our relationship over the last 4 months now, how it's ebbed and flowed, and we both supported each other in various ways, and how Suresh has been able to be a part of that, and how Chris coming into my life over these last 2 months now, and bringing what I've needed in order to roll out this, same similar concept of what happened with you, right? A divine whisper of like, all right, real estate, yes, that's what's been in your life, and it still will be in your life, but I have another purpose for you. And bringing to life this C2A concept could have never happened without Suresh coming into my life, Chris coming into my life, Raquel coming into my life, and to see how the C2A will collaborate with Aloha AI. And as we were in this meeting together up in Salt Lake City, and we talked to them about how we're going to leverage AI to allow the OG AI within the human body to shine bright, which is the most valuable resource that we have, right? Which is the human resource. We talk about resources, and we talk about body, right? Like water. Well, the human body is made up of whatever 70% water, and as we really look at the human resources that we have, and look at to see how we can leverage AI to be able to empower these human resources to be able to solve real world problems. And that gets me super excited to think about how this collaboration will happen in the way that the Almighty wants it to happen, as we both roll forward on what we're working on. And then the rare component, as you talk about what you've been doing and how that's coming together, some of the foundation laying that we're doing with some of these cities, that will, in essence, be new cities built in between California and Phoenix. We've identified a city that's prime for this new way of being, new way of living, and Rare will have an extension and an arm here in the desert of Arizona, and all of the groundwork you're laying there will be plug and play as we create these unique opportunities with farmers that are local, that have desires to create this new way of living, and the liberation of the captives is what we always refer to it as, this process of liberating the captives of our society, these people that are just struggling with so much pain and so much suffering and literally without homes. As my family and I, we went and we had a bunch of extra food after the perk prop party at our house, and we went and the next day took it around to some homeless people in Phoenix. And as we were doing that as a family, it just to see these people that are just so genuine and so hopeless on one hand, but grateful on the other. And the vision that we have of being able to bring those people into these communities that we will build in alignment with Rare and in collaboration with Rare, like as you're talking about this, these are the visions that are coming to mind. And so thank you so much for the background on what you're up to. And this is the first of many episodes with you as we continue to roll things out.
I want to end on one more point. I wanted to ask you something.
Yeah, please.
Highlight something that we haven't talked about on the show. If there's anything you want to highlight, person, place, thing, idea. We've had people in the past who have highlighted a business, but we've also had people who've highlighted an idea. We had a guy who highlighted the concept of stewardship and how much like stewardship has like meant a lot to him this year. It's been like term of the year. So what's something that you'd like to highlight?
Okay, good. Okay, so the reason, there's a lot of reasons that I chose the word aloha to be the name of my company. One of them is that the woman who named me, her name was Pilahipaki, and she was my great grand aunt. So her mother, her mother's sister is my great grandmother, who I'm named after, Kapoliahiiaka. So Pilahipaki, many years ago, before I was born, stood up in a government meeting and said that one day the world would look for the answer for world peace, and they would look to Hawaii for that answer, and that answer is aloha. And then when I was 5 years old, my grandfather and his aunt, Auntie Pilahi, they codified the Aloha Spirit Law, as it's referred to, into Hawaii Revised Statutes 5-7.5. And that law and that vision that was had by my aunt has inspired the work that I do with Aloha AI. And so, like Kanye West says, it's a family business.
Yes.
It is, it's a family business, and it's not an ownership. I do not own the word or concept of aloha, but I feel confident in my upbringing and my understanding of our culture that that this vision was given to me for a reason. And so it's my hope that is true. All of us want more peace and enlightenment in the world.
Amen.
So, amen to that. I guess that's the word aloha.
Aloha is the answer to world peace. I could not, that just resonates with my soul. And we didn't even get into like, we're talking to this is like Hawaiian royalty here. This is a princess.
No. Oh,
Hawaiian royalty.
No. We're gonna cut that out. No. This is the thing. Okay, and I tell this to people. So when you do
Andy always digging it.
yeah, we're gonna go.
No, that's true.
Mo'oku Auhau
This
is
is what he
where,
tells everybody in Arizona, by the way. He
Yeah,
tells
what's up?
everybody in Arizona.
You're a Hawaiian princess.
no, no, no. Okay, so that's the thing. If there's a million Native Hawaiians alive, or however many of us there are, there's 980,000 of us descend from the chiefs, chiefesses, and royal family, because there's only, a handful of people essentially that survived the common cold when it came over on the ships, right? So I call it the Ali'i complex, which is all Hawaiians are like, I am such and such, born of such and such, and like, who cares? I'm not a princess. I'm a woman that wakes up in the morning and I put my pants on one leg at a time. There's no
Well,
princesses in this house.
well, the thing that I love so much about you is that you're raw, you're real, and you lead with your heart. And that's it. Like you show up every day, regardless of who you are. You know who you are, and you know that you know how to hear the voice of the Almighty in your life. That's why you did what you did a year ago and going out and doing what He told you to do, which is, I'm going to start an AI company. I know nothing about AI, but I'm going to start an AI company. It's going to be called Aloha AI because I was told that that's what I need to do. And I love that about your story. Like, it's just such a powerful, so simple, but yet so powerful. And um, that's what will change the world, right? And how the world operates is that simple concept of hearing and then going and doing, right? And every single one of us has a unique story. Every single one of us has a unique ability to be able to add value in this world. And that is, I mean, from my perspective, in my view, like that's the power and the beauty and the importance of the story of Aloha AI and how this has come about is like, hey, you know, you are a simple-minded yet somebody that is very intelligent and has a desire to add value to this world, and you heeded a call, and now you're going forth and doing in blind faith, and it's a powerful story. So I commend you on what you're doing. I'm grateful to be a part of your life on so many levels, and really
Thanks for
just
coming on.
absolutely thank you for being here. Thanks for being a guest with us, and continue
Thank
onward
you.
and upward, and can't wait for the next episode with you here in a few months from now. Get the latest update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Okay. Have a
peace.
good day. Aloha.
Much love. Aloha.
Much love. Aloha.
Adios. Bye.
Adios.